Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Good morning to all of you, and I welcome you to this session in which we'll be discussing at least 7 to 8 interesting topics out of the Hindu newspaper. Now, let's look at the topics which we are going to cover today. The first one is an interesting one with regards to diversity in the judiciary. This article has a lot of static portion to it, and we'll try to understand the static plus the current affairs, which is the private members bill, which has been recently tabled or will be tabled in the parliament. Then there's a lot of excitement for the Venezuelan oil, which India is going to get access to via the US BTA. Now the question is, are our refineries actually ready to process this oil? This is the second very interesting FAQ. These are two what is called as text and context articles. Both deal with very interesting aspects. Then, because the AI summit is on and AI is the buzzword right now, we had two articles which are relevant for UPSC. One with regards to social justice and AI, and the second with regards to what is called as military AI. What is military AI? Should it be regulated, and how will it be regulated? Then AI model language, which was unveiled at the AI summit. Again, important. Then the idea that the DGCA now has some form of understanding and some form of, you can say, regulations coming through for disruptive passengers. And one species was in the news, which is the loggerhead turtle. And this I wanted to point out for you because now it becomes important in the larger scheme of things. So you just need to remember this name of the turtle, and Mukesh sir as it is will cover it in detail when it comes to species in news. So loggerhead turtle. So good morning, and I hope that we can cover this in the next hour or so in an efficient and the best way possible with all the mind maps in place. Now, yesterday we had the phase 2 Concrete Prelims phase 2 session on art and culture, on ancient and medieval. Today is the last session of history which will be dealing with art and culture. So we'll be discussing close to 12 to 13 previous year questions of art and culture and 12 to 13 questions based out of the previous year questions. And this session, you just have to scan this link. The link is also in the description box. This is a special session. Special session means it is open to all. It is open to all. It is a free session. You can just register for it. Just have to log in and you just have to click on notify me and you'll automatically get the notification. Now, before we begin, you should also remember that the 17,999 offer has been extended till 21st of February. So if you want it with CSE Assure, you can use the code IAS English and that will give you access to all the major benefits. Now, with this, let's start, and I hope you will join me for this session at 2 p.m. Remember, last session, 2 modern India sessions, 1 ancient and medieval, and this one is also done. Okay, now, the first is out of the text and context pages of the Hindu newspaper, and it deals with the aspect of diversity in judiciary. Now there are 3 parts to this article and 3 aspects to this article. The first aspect is what are the constitutional provisions. Second aspect is how are judicial appointments done, and the third aspect is the issues in it and how does the private member bill try to address it. So the context for this article is the bill which is going to be tabled in the parliament, which tries to amend the constitution to introduce diversity in the judicial benches, along with the fact that there needs to be regional benches of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is based out of Delhi. The idea that it should have rather regional benches, and at the same point of time, diversity in judicial appointment should be there. Now, let's first try to understand what are the provisions, how are they interpreted, what are the judges' cases, and thereafter, what does the bill say per se. Now, there are three articles which are very important for you, and it is pure static, you can say polity and judiciary. We have Article 124, Article 217, and Article 130. Article 214 deals with 124 deals with the appointment of judges in the Supreme Court, where the word consulting is written. Now pay attention to this point. I'll read the article for you, which is that the judges of the Supreme Court shall be appointed by the President after consulting the Chief Justice of India. Then Article 217 says judges of the High Court shall be appointed by the President after consulting the CGI, the Chief Justice of the High Court, and the Governor of the state. 130 says that the seat of the Supreme Court will be in Delhi, or such orders appointed by the CGI as per the approval of central government. Now, let's first fill in the blanks with regards to our understanding. 124, 217 and 130. This is the pure static content which you should know. The three article numbers which deal with Supreme Court, High Court, and the place at which the Supreme Court will be. This is a standard question which can come in the exam. Now, in both 124 and 217, there's a word which is written, as we saw here, word consulting. Now, this became a very big issue after the 1970s over what this word consulting means. Does consultation mean concurrence? Is it binding? Is it non-binding? And this is where the judicial appointments landscape started to change, and there was an evolution in the way the Supreme Court wanted to interpret it. Now, these are called the first judge's case 1981, second judge's case 1993, third judge's case 1998. Now, first let's try to understand what is the main point here. See, in the 1960s and 70s, the appointment of the CGI was done on the basis of seniority. Senior most judge is basically the CGI. And the idea was executive and judiciary together, as the constitution has envisaged, will take a decision to who will become the CGI and who will become judges. However, there were 2 to 3 judges who were made CGI without seniority or with superseding seniority, meaning they were third or fourth in seniority, but they were made CGI. This led to a certain tussle, a tussle between the judiciary and the executive. The central government and the judiciary started to now clash over the appointment of judges. And this, A. N. Ray, very good point, very good point. A. N. Ray is an example of that. First example, he was fourth in seniority and he was made CGI. 3 senior most judges were ignored. Now, this will lead to the first judge's case to be tabled in the Supreme Court. First judge's case. Now, in the first judge's case, a very important question was answered. A very important question was answered, which is, does consultation mean concurrence? Which is it binding on the president once the CGI has said something. And here in the first judge's case, it was said that consultation is not equal to concurrence, and the word which was used was with cogent reasons. The CGI's, you can say, recommendation to the president can be refused. Can be refused. So concurrence and consultation are not the same thing here. We give the executive the right to deny or refuse what the judiciary is saying. So executive superiority was established. However, in the next decade or so, this issue will become again a focus area for the Supreme Court, and because there will be tussle between judicial appointment, there will be the second judge's case. The second judge's case is considered to be very, very important because this case established what is called as the collegium system. Now, in the second judge's case, the Supreme Court actually retracted everything. It said that consultation of the CGI equals to concurrence. So they made it binding and they overturned their own decision of the first judge's case. It means that if the CGI has said something, it has to be accepted by the central government and the president. But because now consultation equals to concurrence, for the appointment of Supreme Court judges, the idea was it will be CGI plus 2 senior most judges of the Supreme Court who will then recommend the names. This is the collegium, a collegium of judges who are going to now basically recommend the name to the president. So the second judge's case is based on the fact that we have CGI plus 2, which is 3 judges together doing judicial appointments, but the idea was it had been now made binding on the executive. Thereafter, the idea that only 3 judges are there and the issues of opaqueness, of accountability, of nepotism came through, and this in turn led to the third judge's case. Third judge's case to expand the collegium. They expanded the collegium. And now it became CGI plus how many judges? CGI plus how many judges? Come on, static portion. For Supreme Court, very good, 4 judges. CGI plus 4 judges for the appointment of Supreme Court judges. So this brings us to an important juncture which basically establishes the collegium today, which is consultation of 4 senior most judges. Total 5, for 3 to 5. Now, if you look at this system from a third party perspective, from a constitutional perspective, this is a very opaque system. It is binding on the central government and the president, and all of these judges are working within their own setup, their own understanding. And the idea was if 2 senior most judges are dissenting, then the appointment will not go through. But the point is, why did they dissent? What is the judicial appointment process? How did they come to the conclusion? The issues of nepotism with regards to accountability. All of this led to a lot of churn and questioning of this process itself. And that is where, when the collegium aspect of Supreme Court plus 2 to Supreme Court plus 4 to the idea of how we need 2 senior most for High Court, this process of CGI plus 4 and CGI plus 2 for Supreme Court and High Court, this process was questioned multiple times. And the biggest issue was that there was no form of, you can say, minutes, memorandum, or reasons given for the appointment or rejection. And that is where finally we have the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2014, which is called the NJAC Act. This said that we will change the collegium process, and the Constitution was amended to introduce a new process where the NJAC would be appointed consisting of CGI, the two senior most judges, Union Law Minister, and two eminent personalities. However, as soon as this was passed by the Parliament, the Supreme Court struck it down, saying that it is you can say a problem or an attack on the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, and therefore we will not allow the NJSC to go forward. So we still follow unconstitutional per se, basic structure touch. What was decided was the collegiate system will stand. Now, as I said, there are three parts to this story. We know 124, we know 217, we know 130. We understand what is first, second, and third judge's case also. We also understand that what is NJAC. And we now basically understand that there is CGI plus 4, CGI plus 2 for Supreme Court and for the High Court. Chief Justice of India plus 4 plus 2. This is what we have basically established till this point. Now, all of this is about appointment. And with regards to appointment, there are multiple issues which have already been pointed out. In the name of judicial independence, in the name of judicial space, in the name of judicial superiority, and in the name of justice, the judiciary has closed its process to the world, and it is not allowing any form of accountability or transparency to come through. You will find multiple articles. This is a very well-known concept, how judicial independence is now becoming a problem, wherein judicial activism was one thing. Now they just don't want anybody to basically even have access to what is happening. So, therefore, the first part is very well, which is the idea that this closed system, President plus CGI, that is a separate issue altogether. We are talking about the closed system which exists within the Supreme Court to appoint judges. And because consultation equals to concurrence, it is binding also. Now, this bill which is being proposed by the DMK Rajya Sabha member is not about appointment per se. It is about one step further. And the next issue or the biggest issue which has been pointed out in this appointment is social justice and representation. Now, the private members bill quotes the following data, which is it argues that there are only around 20% of the higher judiciary between 2018 and 2024 which belong to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and the OBC categories, and the proportion of women and religious minorities was less than 15 and 5% respectively. Not the Supreme Court per se, but judiciary, higher judiciary. So, what the bill argues is that the Supreme Court should create a process within judicial appointments, within the collegium if needed, to take into account SC, ST, OBC, religious minority and women in proportion to their population in India in the Supreme Court and High Court. This is the first aspect. And the second aspect which is being talked about through the bill is you also have to give maximum of 90 days to the central government to notify the recommendations of the collegium. And it is also arguing that because the Supreme Court sits only in Delhi, a lot of the people cannot have access to it. Therefore, create regional benches in Kolkata, Mumbai, and Chennai with full jurisdiction other than constitutional jurisdiction or constitutional bench. So it is talking about the regionalization or at least the decentralization of the location of the Supreme Court from just Delhi itself. So we understand that there is one fundamental issue in the judicial appointments. But within that fundamental issue, there is also one more issue which is of social justice and no representation or minimal representation in proportion to their population of the minorities, of the depressed classes, of the people who have been historically been vulnerable. And the aspect that Supreme Court sits in Delhi, therefore there is inaccessibility. So let's try to make sense of what we have done till this point. Are you following the thought process of this whole concept? It's not just the article, a lot of static portion has to be brought in. Is this making sense? Okay, now the main core topic is judicial appointments. You can always take a screenshot of this or make it yourself. Mind maps of current affairs will help you in consolidation over a long period of time. You will never remember the article, but maybe remembering the what we call as mind map helps you in retention and overall learning. Okay, now judicial appointment, there's one aspect of non-transparency that stems from the first, second, and third judge's case. The NJAC deemed as unconstitutional, and at the same point of time, the idea that it is concurrence or other consultation equals to concurrence. So therefore, there is judicial superiority over executive understanding. This is based on, this has also brought into focus the opaqueness, the aspects of nepotism, the aspect of corruption, and closed door consultations. This was one aspect. So yes, lack of accountability is the larger issue here. Now, in judicial appointments, merit and seniority is taken into consideration when it comes to this, but there is also lack of representation, which is an aspect of social justice. The idea that SC, ST, OBC, minorities, and women all are not represented in the proportion to their population. And that creates a bias and a social block which maybe the judiciary cannot go beyond. So here the key issue is, very good, lack of diversity. Now see, you may argue that it is based on merit. You may argue that it should be based on merit. There is, you can say merit or demerit to this argument also, but let's be very honest, the perspective of a religious minority, of a woman, of a SC, ST judge or a OBC judge will always be unique, vis-a-vis a judge who may have merit, may have seniority, but may not have seen or gone through the processes which these, you can say, sections of the population have always gone through or have been subjected to. I hope you understand this point. The perspective, the social structures, the hurdles, the obstacles which they cross to come to where they have come to, that is unique to them. So, therefore, when we talk about issues in the judiciary, you should add one more category there, and that category falls under a question like this. The onus for ensuring social diversity in appointment of judges primarily falls on the judiciary through the collegium process comment. Meaning, see, you and me and even the executive cannot push the Supreme Court to do anything. They will deem it unconstitutional. Therefore, it has to come from within the collegium that we have to bring in the process of social justice into our process also, and therefore our appointments should be more representative of the larger pattern. I hope you understand the core issue here. The core issue is this only. The core issue is that people are not having access to what is the, or rather we as citizens of India don't have access to what the deliberations are, and therefore are there systemic biases within the judicial appointment process? If yes, how do we remove it? So this bill most probably will not go through, but the point is, creates a new perspective for us which is equally interesting. Are we clear about this? Yes. Can we move to the next article if this is sorted? Yes, sir. Perfect. Now, the second article is not as complicated as the first one. Due to gender inequality lack, yes, that is true. Gender justice, social justice. Now, we all have been talking about Venezuela, the US taking over Venezuela, and the US then reducing the tariffs on India through the US BTA, bilateral trade agreement, and thereafter there was also this new understanding which was emerging that we are reducing, not substantially, but we have seen a reduction in Russian imports of oil into India, and we will get access to Venezuelan oil. This has been the conversation. This is what has been hailed as a new revolution in energy security in India. Now, you have to understand one thing. Previously, on the same platform, we have pointed out four to five major issues in this story. That is based on 3 to 4, you can say, assumptions or larger geopolitical scenarios. The first is obviously Trump himself. Till when will Trump stand by this BTA? Meaning, will this BTA actually go through? It has not been implemented. The newspaper says in the next 3 to 4 days there will be the implementation of it. Will this 18% stand? And should we actually systemically change our process of acquiring energy? This is the first point, which is the uncertain nature of Trump politics. The next issue is the economics of it. If you remember, in the same newspaper last week, there was an article which talked about the cost of importing. And hands down, without any discount per se, Venezuelan oil will always cost us more than Russian oil. because of the freight cost, because of the distance, and because of the supply chain, how it has been created. So Venezuelan oil is more expensive. We need 10 to $12 per barrel, some form of subsidy to actually make Venezuelan oil useful for our energy security landscape. But what this article points out is this is okay. Even if we are able to get 10 to 12% of Venezuelan oil, are our refineries actually capable of refining the crude oil from Venezuela or from any South American nation and then using it? And that is where two technical terms are used. One is called viscosity and the other one is called as acidity. See, Venezuelan oil is extremely viscous. Vis-a-vis Russian oil, it is extremely viscous. Meaning, what is viscosity? It is the potential resistance to flow. Flow means that when you put that crude oil into pipes, at what flow rate it will go is decided by viscosity. And acidity is the chemical mixture and the pH level of that crude oil, which again is extremely high for Venezuelan oil. Now, why are these two numbers very important? Because most of the pipes, bends, pressure vessels, outlets, valves, choke points, everything is decided according to viscosity. And high acidity number or acidic number will lead to corrosion of the same pipes. Now, as it turns out, most of our refineries can't manage Venezuelan oil, and retrofitting them would be a cost 5 times higher than the cost which we will save by bringing in Venezuelan oil. Why we are saying this? Because we have consistent oil imports, be it Nigerian, be it the Arab one, be it the West Asian one, or be it Russia. All come in the same viscosity, more or less, and the same acidic number. But this one is more acidic and more viscous, which in turn means that when it will be pushed into the same system, it will not be able to use, or it will create pressure on the system because of viscosity and will lead to corrosion over a period of time. So we have, for example, the director of Hindustan Petroleum, who is the refiner, again chairman and managing director of Bharat Petroleum, who are arguing that other than Venezuelan oil being bottom heavy and also very viscous and high in acidic number, all of this will not allow us to refine. Further, it also contains high metal and nitrogen content, which in turn means that we would need to co-blend oil so as to make it lighter. And though we will be able to save $3 billion in bringing in Venezuelan oil, the retrofitting of refineries will be much higher. Close to $10 billion is needed for retrofitting the refineries itself. Viscosity is thickness basically. Thickness is too thick, and at the same point of time it's too acidic. So basically we now have the industry itself saying that even if you import this oil at a subsidized cost, we have no use for it, because we would then have to retrofit everything, and we would have to then also use that oil with co-blending of lighter oil, which in turn has a cost also. So in very simple terms, this is a product which we may have access to. The BTA may have allowed us to get access to it, but it is of no use to our refiners as of right now. So let's see what happens. Firstly, let's see if the BTA gets implemented. If it does, we would then have to develop specific refineries for Venezuelan oil, which is a task in itself. Right? Do you understand the concern? There were three concerns which I said are there. One was Trump himself. The second one was economics of it. Third one is how we will blend it and how we will refine it. This is a new issue which is emerging and has been talked about quite a lot. Right? Okay. Now, moving on to the two articles on AI. See, this article is by the Union Minister of Labour and Employment. That is why I am taking this up, because it has a little bit of government's perspective over things. Yes, it's not cost effective per se, Shreya, true. This is about how the government sees AI per se and labour. And the second article is about military AI, which is also in the news, a very interesting buzzword again. See, there are two perspectives which exist with regards to AI. The first perspective is a positive one, which says that in the labor market, it has the potential to bring in social justice, inclusiveness. It can reform, transform, and rework the workspace to make it more, you can say, hour intensive, or you would say efficiency wise better. So it's basically the efficiency of the worker will become better. So it's about labor productivity. The second perspective which exists for AI is a negative one, which is disruptive, which is labor disruption, or rather we'll say substitution of labor. AI will take away jobs. So BPOs, service industry, manufacturing, in all of these zones, AI will take away jobs, this will increase unemployment and become a disruptor of the whole labor market. So, negative, positive. Now, obviously, it's a government article. Therefore, it will not talk about the negative per se. This is going to be true in some way or the other. It will be true. Rather, it wants to say that the probability of this happening is more than this. That we will have a reworked space for labor rather than a totally destroyed space for labor. So, what this article argues is that AI has the potential to advance social justice and make work decent and have shared prosperity. A human-centered AI serves people better and inclusive social justice. Now, a human-centered AI is an oxymoron in itself, because artificial intelligence was there to replace basic menial tasks of humans, or generative AI is to think. So the idea is that human-centered AI is then diluting the AI's capability so that it does things which how humans would do or for humans would do. So the idea is it can do change, it can change a lot of things. In order to support this argument, the positive perspective, the supporting documents or the supporting perspective here is the fact that they argue that AI helps reduce inequality, benefits workers and the enterprise itself, because it will bring in social protection and workplace safety. The article does not say how, It just says it. It quotes a very interesting ILO report. ILO report says that AI will profoundly reshape the world of work, not replace jobs in whole scale. Therefore, it will drive innovation, organizational performance. Around 1 in 4 workers globally is employed in some place where generative AI is there, but it is helping them, not transforming or changing them or replacing them. Now, again, it's a rosy picture. Why am I quoting directly out of the article? Because I want you to understand how it has been worded in such a way that it seems to be positive. If today I say that UPSC will profoundly reshape the process of UPSC selection or the examination, which will in turn make it more inclusive, I'm technically saying that I will change the process fully, which will in turn lead to exclusion also. So understand this point. It sounds good when I say it as reshaping. If I say that I will replace, it may lead to panic. Rather, I'm saying I'm reshaping the structure rather than replacing the structure. We are not going against the, you can say, our argument which this article is making or what the minister wants to say. We are just trying to argue that profoundly reshaping will always lead to exclusion. Will always lead to exclusion because it will in turn push standard work which could have been done by a human will be replaced by AI, which you can see in the BPO sector. BPO sector it has been predicted in the next 4 to 5 years it will become redundant because we have chatbots everywhere. Now, he then gives an example of how technology can strengthen social justice. But what is interesting is this example itself does not really prove the point. Why? Because the example is just about how technology can help in government work and not AI. Because what he talks about is India's e-Shram platform, which says that it has enabled over 315 million informal workers to register for social protection. The ILO has helped in doing that. The protection has increased from 19 to 64%, and Microsoft is helping build an AI integration into it and under the National Career Service Portal. Now, you tell me one thing. Genuine question. More people have registered for a government scheme. How does it get enabled by AI? Read this line and tell me how AI actually helped in this. एक होती है बोलने की बात. This is basically saying the fact that you have more people signing up for e-Shram portal is rather the victory of the bureaucratic process and the last mile awareness rather than AI. After they come into the platform, they can use that AI, the chatbot, there can be AI tracking also. But the increase in number of social registrations has nothing to do with AI per se. So, very simply, this example itself also does not really prove that AI is in a way is going to change the social justice landscape. Rather, you should look at from this perspective. Historically, at the larger or from the larger perspective, you think of it like this. AI is a very complex technology. Women, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC minorities who do not have access to educational systems and educational structures, will they not get affected by AI more in the long run than actually by helped by AI? Doing social justice is not for them. They are not the subject here. They are just the people who they are uplifting. AI should be able to help these categories go forward. Not that AI is helping the government take these categories forward. If understanding of artificial intelligence is a pre-necessity or is a necessity or it is a prerequisite to entering the job market per se after a certain point, all the categories which they're talking about will not actually have any form of access to AI education. The digital inequality in rural India is already very big. The gap is very, very big. So it is interesting how this basically again does not prove anything. Then in the article, there are initiatives which are talked about which the government of India is taking or has taken to basically bring AI into the sphere of social justice and labor. Here they talk about AI being human-centered, AI mission, National Quantum Mission, the Anusandhan National Research Fund, Research Development and Innovation Fund. They talk about how in the budget, high-powered education to employment and enterprise standing committee has been established. The fact that the emerging technologies we will use AI further, recommendation of integration of AI into schools, recommendation on AI-driven matching of workers with jobs and training opportunities. Again, this is helping the government, not the people. And therefore, in the global south, AI can help the government of India to make the schemes more inclusive. But a human-centered AI approach will not let the same people who they are helping through AI to go forward after a certain point. This is the basic point which we are trying to make, which the article is not able to make properly. So, very simply, the perspective is distorted. It is not able to understand the difference between using AI for social justice, using AI to do social justice, and how AI will change the lives of the labor person. Sure, Kajal, sure. The idea is very simple. You have to understand that, see, AI can help the agencies, can help NGOs, can help the government of India, can help the government of states to make their schemes more inclusive and efficient. But how AI directly impacts labor, vulnerable sections, and what is called as concept of social justice. These are two very different things. I hope you understand this point. Two different things. Not the same. Are we clear about this? Come on. This is the whole point. This article has a subtext to it, and that subtext is coming out. The more you read it, the more you will realize that it is actually self-contradicting in that regard. How can AI be human-centric when we have issues of deepfakes? That is true. That is the whole point, Asitwa. That is the whole point. These vulnerable sections don't even know what is a deepfake. So they are being exposed to even more dangers in the digital world because of this only. Right? Okay. Now, the next article deals with the gray area. If you remember, yesterday we talked about AI and the Indian Army and how Indian Army is developing dual use AI. Now, this article says that military AI or military artificial intelligence and something called laws, which is lethal weapons which are based out of automation, lethal fully automated weapons are a gray area right now. And there needs to be some form of guardrailings which help us in the long run in regulating what is military AI. So, what the premise of this article is that there was a summit which happened last week, which was called responsible artificial intelligence in military domain. In this, India abstained from signing what is called as a pathways to action resolution or declaration, which said that there needs to be governance in military AI and there needs to be regulation and there needs to be further, you can say, an understanding which is binding on the members which should be created. What is interesting is US, India, China were among the ones who did not do it. Previously, 60 countries were ready to sign this document. Then only 35 signed the document in the larger scheme of things. And that is where the article points out that there are challenges which are emerging with military AI governance per se. So, India did not sign it. The reason I'll tell you in the end. But the argument is that this is not the way how military AI governance will go forward. Now, she points out the following issues which exist within this issue, the challenges which exists in military AI. First is that how do you define dual use? And because the same technology can be used for military purposes and civilian purposes, how do you regulate something which is military and civilian at the same point of time? And this will only stifle R&D in the civilian area. Similarly, game-changing technologies which may be exclusive of a country will never be actually restricted because they will never give access to anyone to that. Further, AI has operational and strategic advantages on the battlefield. Why would you allow somebody to actually come and regulate that? But this civilian military integration is something which blurs the line between what can be regulated, what should be regulated, and what should be governed. And overall, this is the biggest issue. Lethal autonomous weapons systems, which is the most conventional use of AI, when in the UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, CCW, UN CCW, when it tried to define laws, which is lethal autonomous weapon systems, it was not able to. And this is, for example, the Reaper drone, which is used today by the US, is right now actually flown from an autonomous sector or from a, you can say, a distance. But it can also be automated. It can be AI driven also. Now, how do you regulate that is the question. And this is where India has very quickly said that in both the 2024 blueprint for action in Korea and the pathways to action declaration, both are premature. First, we have to define what is a lethal autonomous weapon system, and then we have to create some form of guardrails around that concept. The article points out that we should not go into a binding agreement right now, but the world should be able to develop a consensus, a non-binding consensus on what should be the regulations which should be taken into consideration. This is a very important area which is now emerging. Military AI has coming to focus more and more, and we will see more and more articles about it. This article per se does not give you any solution other than saying non-binding regulation, but a question comes out of it in a very interesting way. The use of AI in military is inevitable. The focus should be on ensuring that the right guardrails are put into place. Because autonomous automation and the idea that AI-driven military tech is the future, there has to be some form of consensus which should be brought in today, right now itself. Maybe non-binding, but some effort should be put into that direction. Very interesting question which can come in the examination. Now, from this, we have now discussed the 4 heavy articles which we had to understand. Just to give you a roundup of that, 124, 217, 130, first, second, third judges case, the issues of appointment, and then diversity. This is what we discussed in the judiciary article. Then we were able to understand AI and labor, how AI is helping, doing good for labor, but what it will do to labor is a separate issue altogether. We have also understood what AI and military has potentiality to do and how there's a need to bring in regulations. And last but not the least, we have also understood how Venezuelan oil may be accessible to us, but the problem is the economics is not sound, the refining process is also not sound to us. This is what we've discussed. Now, moving out of this, as I said, loggerhead turtle, you should know that it is being endangered by the processes of climate change and trawling. We will have more discussion on that in Species in News. But I want to discuss two articles before we close this session. The first one is a very simple, straightforward one, which is one second. From Bengaluru, two AI languages have been developed. So it is called as Sarvam AI, which was unveiled on Wednesday in the AI summit itself. It is based on the same large language model as ChatGPT and DeepSeek, and it has been developed in Bengaluru. Open source, named Vikram. Sarvam AI, named after the founder, and this has been developed with the help of private investment from Peak 15 Khosla Ventures, and has been using the GPUs which Indian government has created through the India AI mission. What is important? This is important. Why this language model is going to be a game changer for India? Because the model will be better in Indian languages. AI models today, ChatGPT, whatever it may be, Gemini, they don't work good in regional languages of India. This will be able to actually do better in Indian languages. They were able to demonstrate a lecture of an IIT professor who was speaking in English, and he was automatically real-time translation into Hindi, into Tamil, and into the regional languages of India was done in order to show how good that product is. So interesting development. Let's hope that this further goes forward to actually in a way become a very important potential AI development in India, which can help transform our AI landscape. The last issue which we discussed today is if you plan to consume alcohol, smoke on board, tamper with emergency exits, or engage in protest or sloganeering, or do unruly conduct whilst being intoxicated in the flight, then be ready, because DGCA is now thinking of imposing a ban not exceeding 30 days on passengers who are found guilty of this disruptive behavior. This is an important point. Disruptive behavior has been for the first time being defined as these things. If you're going to do this, you are going to be banned for 0 to 30 days for sure. And the idea is they will not be put into no-fly list per se, but there will be punitive action which will be there. So the DGCA is considering amending the acts to bring in this aspect of punitive action. Good point, needed also in the larger scheme of things. So before I end, I would like to again reiterate this point that at 2 p.m. I will see you all for the art and culture session, in which we'll be discussing previous year question based MCQs, and you can register for the link through this QR code. So thank you, take care. I will see you tomorrow. We'll again have another set of interesting issues, most probably AI again. But as I said, I always filter the articles of what is relevant for you and more gives us fodder for both mains and prelims examination. Thank you. Take care.